Hey everybody, we're live. It's Game Audio Hour. It's our weekly podcast. We discuss all things game audio, from creative ideas, the latest techniques, project experiences to audio secrets. Here's where you'll find your in-depth coverage and opinions related to game audio. And I'm throwing right over to Mike and his laggy machine. How you doing, Mike?
I'm doing well, but I'm at the bottom of the pit of low latency hell, or high latency hell, I guess. Thank you, Time Warner. So expect about 15 seconds between when you say something and when I respond.
Well, we'll do that uncomfortable dead air thing where we just kind of wait and stare at you and wait for it to come back. You know what's funny is that Alex is in Japan, no lag whatsoever. Must be the superior technology.
That's right. It's that super high-tech cable of ninjas and samurais doing their karate in the Pacific or whatever. I don't know. How are you?
No Godzilla stepping on your cable?
Yeah, freaking Godzilla. No, there's no Godzillas over here. No ninjas, no samurais, and yes, people eat stuff other than bloody sushi. It's Japan. You guys got to come and visit me one of these days. Like Vince came. When are you going to come, Kyle? Mike?
I got kicked out of Japan back in the 80s.
For playing too much jazz fusion, or what?
Yeah, that's it.
Because they were really into the jazz fusion in the 80s over here. It was the golden age of Japanese music.
I went to Japan twice. I went to Okinawa once, and I went to the Tokyo Game Show once. And the Tokyo Game Show was amazing, but my God, it was so packed. The whole place, the city, the surrounding everything. I've still got claustrophobia from that show.
You should come and Japan is not all cramped. You know, if you come and visit me, you'll find it's actually pretty spacious.
It was a beautiful place. I don't deny that, and that would be an awesome trip to come back. But we'll see you at GDC, right?
Yeah, that's right.
That's awesome. And we're going to go to our special guest, Shawn Cahill. How you doing, Shawn?
Oh, I'm doing well. Thank you for having me on.
Oh, man, thanks for coming. Shawn and Mike know each other, and Shawn he is a VO artist who's been in a lot of really awesome things that NDAs are denying us from speaking about.
Sorry about that. I can allude, but I can't actually, state names.
Oh, we know how it is. We have to sign those NDAs, too. And, 30 years from now, when they finally release you from it, we'll talk about it then.
Oh, great. I'll be happy to be back on. Oh,
no. Well, we'll have you on 1,000 times before then, but at least then we can talk about it.
Exactly.
So we've done a couple of shows regarding VO, and I got to tell you, I've fallen in love with it since I've started doing a very tiny bit of VO stuff. It's been a blast. And I love having these shows and having artists on because I really get to learn a lot about the process and stuff from you guys that I don't know about. 2 years ago, I had been just completely unknowing of the process and stuff. But Shawn, before I dig in,
okay,
with all of that, can you give me maybe just introduce yourself kind of like to the audience and say, what got you into it, when you started doing it, why you chose this line of work rather than another, what you were doing before you were doing VO? I love those stories.
Oh, okay. Well, I've been doing theater since I was, 16 years old. And throughout the entire process, everybody always goes, oh, you should do voiceover work. You've got a great voice, blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, yeah, sure, give me work. But nobody actually knows how to actually get into this business. It's one of those things that you just eventually fall into, and you're like, wait a minute, I don't have to look pretty? I love this. So probably about 5 years ago, I do a lot of theater still. I still do a lot of film and TV, but someone actually gave me my shot. They were like, "You've got this, this great English voice," and I'm like, "I don't sound English at all." But when I would do Shakespeare or something like that, I put on a tad of an accent, and so all of a sudden, I get this one gig in which I play the paladin type character for a video game. And I would say stupid stuff like, "The light shall protect you," and "feel my righteousness." And I'm like, what? People actually say this stuff?
They do in video games.
They do in video games, but I'm like, but this is really what you want. And they're like, that's what we want. I'm like, all right, fine. And so one gig begets another gig begets another gig. And all of a sudden, eventually, you're working with some big names, and you just like, how did I get here? I have no clue. But don't get me wrong, I'm still like applying to be an extra on another film every other day.
Oh, you're being modest, man.
Please, I may get like 20 days of real studio time in a studio for voiceover.
Well, that's kind of you to be so modest, but we know better.
Right.
So you were doing acting and training for this whole thing for years, really, huh?
Yeah, I wouldn't say training, more like trying to get in an industry where, you know, the percentage of hooking up was in my favor. And all of a sudden, it just actually turned into a career.
That's fantastic. And it caused you to move to LA?
Yeah, it did.
What's the can I ask a question about the artistry of VO work? What's the challenges of doing voiceover work as opposed to doing theater or, you know, stage plays or even movies and films? How the challenges differ?
In actuality, it's probably a lot more freeing, voiceover. Just for the fact that no one puts you in a box right off the bat. Usually when I do like stage or film or anything like that, they look at me and they're like, he's a cop, he's a criminal. They take one look at my size, my look, and they're just like, he looks like he could hurt me. And that's not who I am at all. I'm Big Teddy Bear. And so eventually what happens is they're like, you come in, they look at you, and you're like, are you really playing a child for this? And you're like, yes, I am. And it's a lot more freeing, and even when I'm working with Michael, Michael knows where I go up and down and left and right, and it's just like, in actuality, no one's ever going to cast me as a child. But I've got the voices inside of me that they're just like, oh, I heard this one, and this is who we want. They're like, all of a sudden, you know, like, can you do Ian McKellen? And you're like, yes, I can.
That's awesome, man. So since you can do some voices, do they need you to cover people like that? Like, say they have a game and they want to have, you know, a wizard in there. Do they say, hey, we want that wizard to kind of reflect the sound of, you know, from Lord of the Rings or something, and then hire you to do that kind of stuff?
Oh, yes, all the time.
I want to make sure it was a safe question I was asking. I didn't want to go in the wrong direction with it.
It's a fine question. Basically, I do a lot of my own voices. I mean, I've got a template of about 100, but there's certain people that I can imitate, and what they like to call me is a fixer. And what will happen is I will come in. They've already hired a big name, and they couldn't they didn't get everything they wanted during their session. I come in and I will do like 2 or 3 lines just to fix a couple things, and they don't have to pay me as much.
Oh.
What are some of the
necessary?
What are some of the easiest and most difficult non-American accents that you've had to do?
Hardest accents? They usually don't ask me to do the hard ones because I can't do them. The ones I usually do are the British, the Irish, the Scottish, although my Scottish is terrible. But about 90% of actually what I do, I usually go on as British.
Wow, I wonder why that is.
It's just all of a sudden I get into this. It's not even the lower British; it's the upper British. It's the
received pronunciation.
Narrators. It's like all of a sudden it'd be like the Queen of England and the Archbishop of Duke of Canterbury or something like that, and that's what they want. But usually they're also pompous for some reason.
Is there still a thing in Hollywood where the I don't watch that many movies these days, but is there still a thing where there's this strange American fixation with having bad people be British? Is that still around?
No, they switched it to Australian.
Oh, right. Oh, that's good then. That fits.
I think the
No.
Death Star was manned exclusively by the English.
Yes. Mike
Engines
saves
over.
the joke again.
If they're intelligent and they're foreign, they're English.
Well, Alex, there's a commercial. I think it's done now, but there was a commercial where 3 British actors who always play villains are racing to get to a mansion. One's in an airplane, one's in a car, and one's already at the mansion. That's what it is, right? There's 3. I don't remember who it is. Who are the actors in that?
Isn't it a Jaguar advertisement? I think I might have actually seen that.
Have you seen it? Yeah, that's it. Yes, of course. So the Brits are evil. They're the masterminds. To our British fans, that's not me. Hollywood's doing that.
It's all right. None of them are watching. It's nighttime.
No.
Oh, my goodness. So, Shawn, I wanted to ask a question for Mike, just in case his lag's a little bad. How much information do you get about a gig before you have to show up at the studio? Do they give you a lot of backstory?
None. Usually you get 2 to 3 lines of what the character is. And they give you a big box to work from, but it's usually just like 2 or 3 line description. If you're lucky, you get an idea of what the story's about. But usually they'll give you 2 pages of what your dialogue is, and they'll be like, say this line. All right. Wow. And then they'll be like, now say this line like, this person just broke your heart. Did they? No, but say it like that. Okay.
Just in case they do. Do you with video games, because there's a potential that this, like say you're doing an RPG, which I'm sure you're completely unfamiliar with.
I am totally unfamiliar with this.
And so there's a dialogue that exists in the game where I get to choose 3 lines that I want to say to this person. Well, the first line is, hey, you're really cool and we should go have a drink. The second line is, stop talking to me, I'm busy. And the third line is, if you say one more thing, I'm going to kill your whole family. And they make you say all of those different responses to those different lines, right?
Oh, of course, yeah.
Yeah. And do you find that difficult? Do they make you do them all right there, or do they kind of put you in a happy place and say, let's cover only the happy dialogue moments, then go in and do the neutral dialogue moments, then go back and do the sad dialogue moments?
For the most part, with items like that, you will just go down the list, and they will have what the question was. You'll just do the options, and then they'll go to the next one. It's not all happy, all sad, all angry.
Ah, gotcha.
They'll usually just go down the list.
What do you like to do as an artist when you get to a new set? What is it that you want to do? You want to warm up, get comfortable with the studio, I imagine, and then when the director starts working with you, what is it the first thing that you like him to do? Or her, excuse me.
Well, as an artist, I like freedom. Sometimes they'll be like, no, this is what we want. It has to be this certain way, and you end up doing 30 takes, and you're just like, I have no clue what he wants. But the other times, it's like when they allow you to actually create a character on the spot, and you find where he lives, and it's not. I don't know how to describe this. It's if they allow me to play, and they play with me. That sounds terrible. It gets. That's where I'm the happiest. But sometimes they're very strict, and somebody's like, they're listening for the minutia of an emotion at the very end of a sentence, and you're like, what? I have no clue what you're talking about. But usually you find it. It's the people who compromise, and you go back and forth, and they let you actually create a character. Those are the fun times. The bad times are when they're hard-ass and they have the specific sound that they want, and you're just like, I have no clue what you're talking about, brother. And they can't communicate what they want.
Yeah, I can imagine. I'm going to capture one of Mike's questions here. He says, would it be easier if you knew more, or are the archetypes broad enough that you can wing it typically?
Typically, you can wing it.
Typically,
they give you enough of a backstory, but... Actually, a lot of the directors do like when you ask questions, but the fact of the matter is they're under NDAs as well.
No way. So they can't let you know some stuff about the very character you're playing?
Yep, or plot points.
That's ridiculous. Is that common?
Yes.
That's ridiculous because, I mean, how are you supposed to get the best out of a voice actor if you can't even divulge the background behind the character?
The business has gotten to a point where they are so scared of spoilers and anything of the story coming out that no one person has all the information except for like the director.
That's incredible.
Yeah. I don't do like the big characters at any times. I'm usually like some supporting guy, tertiary. But yeah, so I don't get the full. I never get the full story. I was talking to Michael the other day, and I'm playing a video game right now, and I'm like, I still haven't found me.
Oh, really? So you did all this work.
Where I am.
But you know what character you played, right?
Yeah, I do. I have ideas of what he was, but I'm just like, I can't find him. I haven't heard him yet.
Oh my goodness. So how fast do on these are difficult. This is a difficult question because I know it's going to be based upon the project, the people that you're working with. But if you were able to put an average together of how many lines in an hour you were kind of expected to get out, you know, because they're on a budget, they're on a time constraint. What is expected of you as an artist? Do you just burn right through them, or you know, what is expected?
Usually we're slotted in for about 4 hours.
Okay.
This is typical for me. Union rules, whatever. We get about 4 hours. We typically finish in 2, but we're slotted for 4 hours. In that time, probably about 200 lines.
Wow. You're saying you do 202 hours, but you have 4 hours to get it done?
Yeah.
That's unbelievable.
Well, that's one of the reasons I get hired.
Yeah, that's really awesome. That is fantastic.
Matt, in the chat room, Matt is just asking a question here, whether you have your own recording setup, or do you always go into a studio on site, or how does that work?
I do both. I have a studio at home. Right now, I have my AT2020 right here. And I usually do that for stuff that just needs to be overnighted, or you know, they just need 5 lines. They don't need me to come into the studio for that. But usually, I like to go to my favorite up here is David Dave's in Burbank. They have a wonderful studio, and my friend Richard Malmos got me in touch with them, and we've worked there together, and they're just the best. So that's where I typically head out, unless I have to go to one of the studios, and when I say studios, Paramount, Warner Brothers, whatever. And those times, they have their own studio, they book you in for time.
Yeah.
I see. Do you generally find it much easier working from home, or do you find it easier actually be on site with the rest of the people, even though they can't tell you anything about your character? That seems so stupid.
They tell you some stuff. It's just you don't get the whole picture.
Yeah, you don't get the whole picture.
And I'm like, I'm not big enough that they're like, they care. What was the question again? Do I prefer home or I prefer in the studio every single time, because you got someone you got someone in this actual studio mixing and doing it on site, and it's like boom, boom, boom. While I'm at home, I'm doing the editing myself, and for say 20 minutes of work, then I'm spending another hour and 40 minutes, fixing it.
Do you have a microphone that you prefer to use, and how did you land upon that mic, or did you just go through loads of them and then find one that you thought sounded good, or what's the history there?
I've always been partial to Audio-Technica. They're just the brand I've always used. I prefer them for some reason.
There you go.
Hello. And so I've gone through quite a few, but for most general day use, I tend to use the 2020.
Right.
Nice.
Yeah, Audio-Technica's quite an interesting company because they're actually in Tokyo. And yeah, I was never actually when you go into these Japanese music shops and stuff, you got the Audio-Technica stuff there, but it's always next to European and American counterparts, and there's sort of an image in Japan that, well, it's kind of, it can't be as good as the imported stuff, So I never had this image of them actually being that incredible until I actually, got a set of headphones, and then that sort of, I realized, they're doing some pretty good stuff over there.
They do. I've always found them. They capture my voice the best, especially for the microphones. The headphones are fantastic too. Not to piss on Dr. Dre or anything like that.
Yeah, it's a shame that they don't have a better kind of image in Japan, Audio-Technica, because they're local. You would hope that people here would understand their place in the market, but I guess it's all European or American is more good because it's mysterious and different and foreign.
No.
Here in the States, though, Audio-Technica is well respected, very well respected.
Really?
That's all I use.
Yeah, absolutely. There was another question that I had. Actually, I think it was one of Mike's, unless there's one in the room.
How's my line?
I can't remember where I saw it.
Sounds terrible.
Oh, you sound great, dude.
Well, all right, I'll try it.
No, it's good.
I've been teller so far, just being. No, I think I'm back in lag zone. So Kyle, I'll let you field a question for me.
Oh, I love this Google. What kind of VO roles would you like to do if you had a choice?
If I had a choice, I've never gotten to do the dark detective stuff.
Oh.
I've always wanted to do those.
Sam Spade kind of thing.
Yeah, it's closer to who I actually am instead of the British knights and whatnot.
And you got any? I know you can't tell us, but the projects that are coming up for you. Anything you're excited about, like a character archetype or anything like that you could allude to?
I worked on something about 2 weeks ago that was quite exciting. It's probably because I've never gone to done like the rowdy southern hick I'm going to go with, but I'm sure someone's going to slap me for that one.
Nah.
But I've never played really southern or anything like that, but I got to do that, and that was really quite fun. And it's for like a car demolition game.
Ah, very cool. Do you get a chance often to work with the whole cast at the same time, or is it usually individual?
Never.
Oh.
It's really funny. I bumped into someone who was, I can't talk about it, but he's like, "Oh, I love your work. I want to work with you sometime." And I'm like, "Why? We're always separated." But
now, do you work with an
rarely do we have anybody else in this studio?
Oh, sorry about the interruption. The lag got me there.
Square.
Do you work with an agent, or do you book your own gigs?
Agent.
Agent. That's the best way to do it, huh?
Yeah. Although I did do the voice 123, voice bunny stuff. A couple years back, but I did not have a good experience with them, so I stay away from it now.
Does your agent want you to find the gigs? Does the agent find the gigs for you?
I find most of them myself. I've gotten to a place where just people call me up.
That's great. That's great. So the agent can handle all of the kind of business end of payment and stuff like that, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Good. So advice for people that want to get into VO. You hear it 1,000 times. I kind of hate to ask this question, but it's so important. What do you got?
Find someone who is doing it, ask them how, and they'll be like, "I have no clue." It really is a matter of just being in the industry and someone believing in you. I hate to say it, but for people who are not in the unions right now, I mentioned Voice 123, Voice Bunny. You can get a start there. You make the reel, find your voices, and just have fun. Just play. You'll get yourself out there with those sites But eventually, if you really, really want to make it in this business, you've got to go to New York City. You've got to go to LA. It's where it's where it happens. You can do a lot of stuff at home, but eventually they're going to want to see you be in your presence for some reason. Even though, like right now, we're all video chatting. But,
yeah.
I mean, I've done sessions in my room while someone's talking to me over a video, but it's not easy as it is when I just walk into Warner Brothers studio.
That's awesome. Now, being in the VO business now, you're here in LA. I imagine that there's kind of a network of other VO artists who you get access to and stuff like that. Do you get are those people open to you saying, hey, you work on The Simpsons and I now know you if you have an upcoming part, and you need a new voice? Or are people kind of standoffish about that kind of thing so that you can maintain the friendships but you don't want to cross that line?
Everyone, we're all friends, but don't be doing someone else's voice. I mean, if I start going over talking to Seth Green and being like, "Yeah, I don't want to go to school. I just want to draw," he'll slap me. He'll be like, "Don't do that voice. That's mine."
Like, got to protect your intellectual property, huh?
Exactly. He's like, I don't want to hear that you've just recorded something of mine.
Fair enough, absolutely. So in some ways, it's still very competitive among VOs because there's a limited number of projects that you can be on, and they're going to look for people who they're familiar hearing, right? I imagine. So a project comes up and they say, Seth Green does a bunch of voices. Let's go get Seth Green. How do you find that project and get yourself into that audition?
It's really once you start working with one or two people and they and you go in and you're professional and you're respectable and you're not slacking off, they'll keep calling you back and they'll talk to other people and they'll bring you back or say, hey, this guy Shawn's really good, you should see him. Everybody talks in this industry. If you start, coming in drunk or not warmed up, people will find out.
Or calling in sick the day of the recording.
Exactly. You got to stay healthy. You really do.
Which brings me to my next point. Throat coat.
It's fantastic.
Yeah. Is there anything particular that you want to have, like in a writer or something, when you go to a session?
Water, lots and lots of water.
Yeah.
I mean, usually there's a pitcher and a glass, and do all day long. But for people who really do want to get into VO work, water is your friend. Your voice changes during the day. My morning voice is gravelly. By afternoon, it's more melodic. You got to know what voices you're doing, what time of day to do them. But yeah, if you drink milk before a session, you are not going to sound the same. Soda, the same thing. It's just water is your friend.
Oh man.
Who are some of the voice actors that you respect?
Then I respect them all. I can tell you who I don't respect.
Who do you idolize? Who do you idolize as far as voice acting is concerned?
The thing, I idolize actors.
Okay.
Not specifically voice actors, but actual actors. And those gentlemen have these wonderful voices, and I just try to emulate them, imitate them, whatever. And you listen to Ian McKellen, Patrick Stewart. I can listen to Patrick Stewart do A Christmas Carol, for hours. It just has wonderful voice, and there's so much acting going on, and you're just listening to his voice. It's fantastic.
Yeah, it's very soothing. Now, coming up in the theater, now that you're doing voice acting, has that changed your desire to be on stage?
No, stage is my first love.
Gotcha. So you still reach out for those opportunities as often as possible, I imagine.
It's basically you do the stage, you do the film, you do the voiceover. I don't make that much money. But all three together, I'm okay.
Gotcha. Maintain the process, huh?
It's just like you gotta find work every day.
Wow.
For a new an upcoming voice actor trying to get into the business, do you think that being able to speak other languages is useful to get work, or is it just useful from an understanding of linguistics point of view?
No, knowing a foreign language is fantastic. There's a lot of every TV show that you see. There's a Spanish version. There is there's a Swahili version. There's 15 different versions in 15 different languages, and somebody has to say the words.
Wow, that's tough. So, learning languages on top of this skill on top of that. Jeez.
Yeah, because it's interesting when I speak Chinese and Japanese and a little bit of English, but when I started learning, especially Chinese, and also to a certain extent Japanese, although Japanese pronunciation is a bit easier, Chinese pronunciation is very, very different, very challenging, and I found it really gave me a new and, I guess, broader understanding of the way that English is put together and English pronunciation, and more of an objective awareness of my own accent once I started speaking other languages. I'm just wondering if you've had a similar experience.
I don't speak any foreign languages.
Okay.
A little bit of French, and I was terrible at it. Je m'appelle. That's about all I know.
You should hear me do English. It's horrible.
It's like, as far as me, a foreign language is an accent.
Yeah. Hey, a newcomer coming in, would you recommend for their demo that they try to focus on a few voices or have a breadth of options in their demo?
Starting out, I would say to find your actual voice first, your true voice. Once you have that and you have your tone, your intonation, and you have full control over your voice, then you can start playing with the character voices and adding on to it. But you really have to be able to emote with your voice. That is the number one thing you have to learn first.
So finding a true voice, would you say that's something like learning not to say a lot in between sentences or stutter some points, which are all the things that I do?
Oh, please. As we're talking right now, I'm going to be going, what did he say? It just happens. There it is. There's my delay for me thinking. Though the true voice is just, for me, this sounds so artsy. It's ridiculous. But when I'm doing another show, like a stage show or film show, my friends have noticed that I never actually use my regular voice. I'm always adding something to it just because that's what I do. I like to do that. And they're like, when are you actually ever going to just be yourself on stage? And I'm like, I'm an actor. I don't do that. But you gotta find your cadence, your tone, and just probably the number one thing I would also say is no one actually knows what they sound like. What I hear when I'm talking is not what you're hearing. My voice in my head is different. You got to develop that ear to know to filter it all out so you actually can figure out how you actually sound. First thing I would do is get a microphone and start talking into it and discover what you actually sound like, because it's not what you think it is.
Wow.
Yeah, I always hate doing voiceover work just for that specific reason, because when I hear myself, it's like, oh, that sounds so bad. My voice sounds so bad. It's all about the resonance inside your skull, isn't it? Something about how the sound bounces around inside your head makes it sound completely different to what other people are actually hearing.
I think I sound amazing right now, but that's not what people are
hearing. Who do you draw inspiration from, or where do you find inspiration when you're creating new voices?
I like to play. I can't talk about that. But you just find the voice. First off, you hear your friends and you're like, where does your voice come from? And you're just, I have never heard that in my life. And then you just want to imitate it or find out how you can recreate it. So all of a sudden, I'll take my voice and bring it down into my chest, or then I'll bring it up into my head. It's just, you got to play. You can't be scared to sound like an idiot because A, you're gonna sound like an idiot. But once you do it, all of a sudden you'll find that sometimes when you're talking, you'll find a character and the voice will just create the entire character for you.
That's cool. Have you ever done Australian before?
Uh-oh.
There it is.
I'm sure I have, but it's not one that usually comes right to me. A lot of times I will go on YouTube and be like, what does that accent sound like again? Oh yeah. And then I'll just mimic it or imitate it.
Yeah, it's horrible, isn't it?
I was never like Crocodile Dundee and be like, put another shrimp on the Barbie or whatever.
Yeah, it's terrible. There are 3 Australian accents. Mine is the least common one. So, but the ones that usually get on YouTube and stuff like that, they'd all be from like Sydney, where it goes up at the end of the sentence. Everything you say goes like this, so you don't know when they're asking a question. Like this. How's it going? Exactly. So like, yeah.
Hey, I've got a question. So I've got a really good friend, and if he's watching the show, he's going to get pissed at me for bringing this up. And he was on the show Who Wants to Be a Superhero, and he won the first season. The character he played was Feedback. It's a pretty cool guy. And so he's an actor, and I am deathly afraid of acting. In my regular life, whether anything, if I ever seem disingenuous or like I'm trying to put something on, I could never even go through a drive-through and fake an accent like I belonged somewhere else. I can't do any of that without getting horribly embarrassed. And so he sat with me, and he was like, just let it go, Kyle. Just be the thing. Just let your imagination. And I have a huge imagination, but when I have to be a character in that imagination, that's really uncomfortable for me. Did you have to get past that kind of like playing a character, or even something as simple, like I said, as putting on an accent and ordering a hamburger at a drive-thru?
I lost it at an early age. Probably around 2021, I didn't get scared anymore. There's no nervousness, and nowadays I will be the guy who goes to the fast food restaurant and I'll pretend I'm someone else. It'll just go. I mean, like I'll be like Mac and Cheese Boy or something that I created in my head and be like, I like mac and cheese. Oh, it's so good. I'm like, who does that? I do.
That's awesome. So there's, I mean, for me, I think, oh, these people are going to think I'm an idiot. The people I'm with are going to wonder what the hell I'm doing. But you're just going, who cares if they care, if they wonder? I'm having fun.
You got to drop the fear and just be as insane as you want to be.
Yeah.
And the more insane and more creative you can get, the more work you get.
Good point. I think it's important for people to hear that let it go. Who cares? The people at the drive-thru have no idea who you are.
And they don't care. And yeah. if you made an impression, they got a good story.
That's awesome. That's awesome. You guys got another question? Oh, I think Mike does. Hey, Alex, ask a question while I read Mike's Moby Dick he just put in the chat room.
Okay. How many hats do you own?
Me?
Yes, you.
1, 2, 3, 4. Probably about 7.
7. Okay. 7 is good. A man can never have enough hats.
We're up the receding hairline.
New York is great.
Alex May with the hard-hitting questions.
Thanks.
That's right. Let's see.
Switch.
Oh, Mike just said, is that what you're supposed to do at drive-thrus? He's been using them wrong all these years.
All right.
Oh, it's the edge.
Now you look like a burglar.
That's what I usually look like.
Voice burglar. Do you like Mel Blanc? There you go.
That's of course. He revolutionized the field. He's just fantastic.
Do you know, actually, I have a question. I grew up watching the Bugs Bunny show, and so Mel Blanc defines for me what voice acting is. But do you know that, because of course there's one man doing all of those voices, did he do those in one take where he switches between the characters and they just record him just going through the whole thing, or did he actually record, say, one character's voice the whole way through and then record the other character's voice the whole way? Do you know?
I don't know, actually. I would assume he would do one voice and then then go back to the other one. It's tough to switch back and forth.
Yeah, that's because that was going to be my.
It was so great that he probably could have just done it.
Yeah, that was going to be one question actually. Is that like how difficult when you've got to do two voices and you have to keep them highly consistent, say over several sessions. Are there any tricks that you've found useful to actually keep locked in your head the way that one voice should sound, or you just go back and listen to what you did before?
First off, it's usually a great script supervisor who actually has a wonderful ear, and they'll be like, you need to go more in your chest or higher in your nasal cavity. They listen so well that they'll be like, you're a little off today, Shawn. And I'll be like, oh, sorry, I had a soda. My bad.
I drank milk.
I drank milk today. My bad.
Oh, man.
But usually it's you stay with one character the whole time and then switch over.
So do you like the idea of, and maybe this has already happened to you, being handed two scripts? One of them is just all of the lines, and you get a good backstory before, and you just like you're going to play the male biker character who's going to kill zombies, and here are 40 lines. Go. And then after that, after you've done that, going back and saying, okay, here's the 3 lines for you're stuck in a barge. Now you've already said these 3 lines, but now you're getting a little bit more history in pieces. 3 lines with some history, three more lines with history. Have you been in that situation where you see both of those scripts?
It's usually actually all in one. I don't know how to. It'll say like you'll go down the list, and they'll have the dialogue going down, and then they'll be like number 1, number 2, number 3, and you'll say number 1, number 2, and number 3, and then it'll keep on going to the next question and whatnot. But it's the more information I get, the happier I am. I have just a more informed choices.
Gotcha.
Where I'm going. But unfortunately, this business has gotten so crazy that they don't like to give you anything, and then they're just like, why don't you know what you're doing? I don't know. Just give me this piece of words on a napkin. I mean, how big is the show? I don't know.
They're like, where is Mac and Cheese Boy?
It's like, they want Mac and Cheese. Ask me for Mac and Cheese Boy. I'll give you Mac and Cheese Boy. It's so good. It's so good. I love it so.
Have you ever been let go from a project? Have they said, thanks for coming to the studio, we've changed our mind?
Not for voiceover. I have for TV, but never for voiceover.
Oof, that had to be a tough moment.
That doesn't matter. I got paid. I was happy.
Oh yeah, that's true. That's true. Oh my goodness, I have a bunch of questions. Alex, go ahead. You're up next.
Do you play many games, Shawn, yourself?
I used to be a very heavy gamer. Unfortunately, life does not allow me to play as much as I used to.
It's funny, isn't it, that when you get into the game development industry, whatever your field is, it's funny how the more that you actually create games, the less that you actually have time to play them.
Exactly. There's a couple. I mean, like I said, I'm playing one right now just to find me, and I haven't gotten that far yet. I feel bad. I feel bad about it.
Are you usually do you usually find yourself when you do find you? Are you usually? It must feel kind of. Is it usually like a happy feeling that, oh, there I am, or is it usually what they completely missed what I was trying to do with that voice?
A lot of times it's you wanted me to look like that. Why are you making me into a redhead? A redhead. And then those times where you see yourself as a character and your character's 280 pounds and you're just like, really? I have the voice of a fat man. Okay, thanks.
So that's what you think of me.
That must be quite funny, actually, when you if you have no idea what kind of character you're actually going to be doing the voice of when you're doing it. It must be kind of funny to sort of later on come in and then see how somebody interprets the tone of your voice, that they think that your voice suits this kind of character. I always find that with the when you go see an American movie in the Japanese cinema, you have a choice between subtitled or dubbed. And when they do the dubbed ones, they're hilarious because when you get an actor like, Brad Pitt or somebody like that, we know what Brad Pitt's voice sounds like. But the way that a Japanese voice-over director will see Brad Pitt and then envisage his voice is completely on the other side of the spectrum.
Exactly.
So it must be funny, like, when you're doing games to actually sort of play the game and see yourself as this, like, massive, I don't know, something that it's like, that's the way that a voice director sees me or hears my voice?
Well, it's especially fun when it's, I mean, most of the time, if it's a substantial enough character, they'll have artwork.
Oh, okay.
And they will show you. But I do a lot of the secondary, tertiary characters. So they'd like, yeah, we don't have a picture for him. Whatever, just go. Just say the line, Shawn. Go home.
So it's got to be pretty interesting that they kind of like coach you through a voiceover and they say, give me some bass, get it really gravelly, and then when you play the game, you realize that you're playing a 60-year-old smoking woman.
It happens. My favorite is when it's an alien, and you're like, "That's what you wanted," and I look like that. All right, whatever. Here we go.
Are there any preconceived notions that you will attach to a character based upon what you've seen? Like, for instance, if you are given a picture of you're playing a character that's got red hair rather than brown hair, does that affect the way you give the performance?
Yes, it actually does. You just you take a look at somebody and then you're like, I mean, when you audition for them too, it's like they'll show you some artwork and they'll be like, and they'll give a small description, 3 lines, and they'll be like, all right, now give us the voice. And so you pick and choose, and I see red hair, and I think no soul, and it just comes through magically.
Matt has a really good question in the chat room. This is great. He says, do you ever get asked to dumb down a performance to sound more wooden or have a B-movie quality?
Yes.
That's amazing. I'm sorry, Mr. Cahill, you're doing too good a job there. Could you make it more crap?
This has actually happened to me on actual TV sets, where the director will come to me and be like, "You are doing too well, and you're making the other actors look bad. Tone it down. Tone it down."
Wow.
Like, this is a major TV show, and you're just like, just please, they're just pretty people. Stop it.
There is that philosophy about guitar players. The uglier you are, the better you are. And so the pretty ones never play quite as well.
It happens sometimes. And all of a sudden, you're like, you must have the best editors in the world. And I turn to the second AD, and they're like, yes, we do.
But, Shawn, I would say, looking at you, that you must do terrible voiceover because you're gorgeous.
Oh, stop it. I'll give you my phone number later.
Mike slipped me a 10. I had to say it. It was part of the contract.
Thank you, Michael. I appreciate it.
Mike
won't hear you say that for another 20 minutes. Don't worry about it.
Next year, when his feed catches up next year, he'll respond.
He needs to put more quarters in his payphone connection to the internet.
He needs to pedal up more electricity. I think that's what you got to pedal faster.
This is what happens when you move, Michael.
Poor Mike is getting beat up, and all I see is this very clean, straight face. No smile. I don't know if he hasn't heard us or if he's mad at us. I can't tell the difference.
Just wave, Michael. Wave to us. Let us know that you're there.
Yeah. Blink twice. So now I want to talk to you about work. Oh, he finally did something. So people who aren't seeing the video, Mike finally moved. After all of that, we saw movement. So did Mike find you for his project? Was it something you auditioned for?
No. What happened was the original actor for this show broke his leg. And so the show, I think, had to go up in another week. And I had been friends with this theater company, and they're like, Shawn, you're evil. Would you like to play the evil villain for this kids show? And I was like, yeah, sure, whatever. I'm cool. And so I had to do it in like a week's time, learn all the music, the dance, and the acting. And it was a blast. And Michael didn't totally hate me.
That's awesome.
So after that, he just
give him time.
kept in contact, and he keeps using me every once in a while.
Now, did you tour with the show?
No, it was only up here in LA.
Ah.
But the show has gone on to much success in all over the U.S. It's international now, isn't it, Michael? Yes, Michael. I'll answer for you. Yeah, well, yeah, Sean. It's international now. We're very proud of it, me and Greg Crafts. But and we thank you very much for doing it for us. Yeah.
We didn't pay you enough. We want to pay you more.
Yeah, don't I wish?
If you're talking for him, just get some money out of it.
And by the way, we decided instead of us getting the royalties, we want to give you some of it. So for all your hard work and all the singing you did for the soundtrack, thank you.
Did you get the Jaguar we sent you?
No, didn't get it at all. Bastard.
Mike wrote in the chat, he's like General Zod from Superman 2. He's just there floating in a square. Or maybe I got the wrong guy. Was it 2 that had the guy floating in outer space, the 3 of them? Or was that 1?
Well, they both, the beginning and the end, they were in the neutral zone.
Ah, gotcha. That's not one I've watched a lot of. Well, we're running out of time. Alex, do you got any more that you want to add?
Only that keep it up, Sean, because I think voiceover work in games is highly underappreciated, highly understood. If you get what I mean, like people don't really understand how difficult it is, and how I know this only because I'm trying to do voiceover work with somebody who's not a professional voiceover actor because we can't afford one. And it's really difficult. It's really, really difficult. When you hear it in the game, it's like, yeah, all the characters are speaking, yeah, big deal. But when you actually try and do it, try and produce it yourself, you realize that it's really, really hard. And
it's difficult, yeah.
Yeah, so the only thing I have to say is keep it up. You're doing great. You and your kind.
We try. Hey,
I actually have 2 more questions.
All right, bring them.
Just like me to end a show and go, what? But wait, there's more. When you're working with a director, do you want them in the studio with you doing some of the counter lines, or do you want them to just kind of give, kind of cheer you on and say, good job?
If I can get the counter lines, by all means.
Yeah.
Anything you give me helps me more. But yeah, there's some directors who will just be like, all right, to the line.
Really? Do they pause in between a set of lines and I guess I got more than 2 questions. Do they pause in between a set of lines and wait to hear from the engineer if everything got captured, and also hear from the script supervisor if you did it like the way they were listening for, or do they just kind of keep rolling? How do interruptions come through, basically, is what I'm asking.
What will happen is there will be a voice over the intercom into the studio going, 1 second. And that didn't work for us. Do it again.
Oh.
Usually every line or dialogue, you'll say your certain amount, and you'll pause for a second going, are we good? All right, I'm just going to keep going on then.
Do you ever ask to correct your own? Do you ever say, oh, I can do that better?
All the time.
Yeah. Okay, go ahead.
I'm sorry. A lot of times they'll be like, all right, that was great. Thank you very much. And I'll be like, I got better. I know I have better. Can we please? And sometimes they'll be like, yeah, sure. And other times they'll be like, we want to go home.
Oh, yeah. Is there a particular time of day you like to work? Or do you typically get in there at 8?
Depends on the character.
Okay. Yeah, because it makes sense. If it's like it's a character who's playing like working the streets at midnight, you want to do it later in the day, huh?
Well, no. If it's more if I'm going into my throat more, I like to do it in the morning. Like if I have to be like, how you doing? I want to do that in the morning.
That makes sense. That makes sense.
I get more gravel in the morning, and if it's like I said before, if it's more tonal, more melodious or whatever, I like to do it in the afternoon.
And I can't even remember what the major 2 was. One more time. I sound like I'm directing you.
I'm sorry. Take 2. Basically, if there's more gravel in my voice, or you need someone tougher or whatever, I'd like to do it in the morning because I've got a lot more gravel, a lot more phlegm going on. And if it needs to be more melodious or fun and just lyrical, I like to do it in the afternoon. My voice is warmed up by then.
Shawn, it was awesome talking to you. Thanks for being on the show.
Hey, thanks for having me. I feel like I've
We'll get you
monopolized
back on
the
here.
entire show. I'm like, hi, folks.
But it's about you. That's the idea. Oh, I stepped on your line. Damn it. All righty. Well, I'm going to sign off by saying, everybody, please follow the show on Twitter and like us on Facebook. Game Audio Hour on Twitter and Game Audio Hour on Facebook. GameAudioHour.com. You'll find us, and also follow Shawn Cahill on Twitter. Do you have a Facebook, Shawn?
Yeah, I do. It's Shawn Cahill. Facebook.
It's easy to find because he likes some macaroni and cheese. You'll see that right there. You got a big banner of macaroni and cheese at the top, right?
Actually, if you try to hook up with me on Facebook, you'll see a box that says Ego, and pouring it into a cereal bowl, it'll be a bunch of likes, those little thumbs up.
That's perfect. All right, guys. Well, I'm signing off. Thanks for watching the show, everybody out in the chat room. We got a bunch of people coming in. Chase showed up right on time. Good to see you, Chase. And, hey, guys, we'll see you next week. Thanks. And find the button, the uncomfortable weirdness, finding the button.